What if decorating your house for Halloween got your spooky setup destroyed, a $400 fine, and police threats? In Louisiana, Tim Nguyen's festive spirit turned into an HOA nightmare. Stay tuned for a story of celebration, injustice, and a community's fight to keep the Halloween magic alive. In the humid suburb of Bayou Gardens, Louisiana, where Spanish moss draped over ancient oaks and the nights carried the distant croak of frogs, 38-year-old Tim Nguyen lived a life of joyful creativity. A high school art teacher and father of two, Tim had bought his $260,000 Creole-style home in 2019, a vibrant space where he nurtured his children's love for holidays, especially Halloween. On the muggy evening of October 28, 2026, Tim set up his annual Halloween decorations in his front yard. Plastic skeletons, glowing jack-o'-lanterns, and a motion sensor ghost that let out a cackling laugh, the eerie sound echoing through the neighborhood as trick-or-treaters giggled in anticipation. The orange lights casting a spooky glow across the lawn. Bayou Gardens was governed by a strict homeowners association, led by 62-year-old President Clara Benoit, a retired florist who enforced rules with a puritanical zeal. Clara saw the neighborhood as a quaint, serene enclave. No loud displays, no garishness, and certainly no decorations that could disturb the peace, even during holidays. The HOA bylaws stated, "No decorations may cause disturbance or clutter, with a $400 fine per violation." A rule Clara interpreted broadly to ban anything she deemed excessive, like Tim's Halloween setup. That evening, as she drove through the neighborhood in her sedan, its engine humming softly, she spotted Tim's yard, the flickering lights and ghostly laughter, an affront to her vision of order. Her hands clenched the steering wheel, her face twisting in disapproval, and she muttered to herself, "This Halloween nonsense is a disturbance. It's coming down tonight." At 7:30 p.m., just as Tim adjusted a spider web on his porch, the sticky threads catching on his fingers, the sharp wail of police sirens cut through the festive air. He turned, the ghost's cackle still ringing in his ears, as a police cruiser rolled into the cul-de-sac, its tires splashing through a puddle, red and blue lights flashing against the mossy oaks. Two officers stepped out, their boots squelching on the damp ground. The lead officer, 45-year-old Raymond Dupré, fanning himself in the humid air as he approached. "Sir, we've had a complaint about a disruptive display," Officer Dupré said, his voice thick with a Cajun accent, cutting through the ghostly laughter. Tim's brow furrowed, his hands brushing off the fake cobwebs as he stepped forward. "A complaint? It's just Halloween decorations. For the kids," he said, his voice rising with disbelief, the words carrying across the humid night. Clara, who had followed in her sedan, stepped out with a stern expression, clutching a fine notice in her hand, her glasses glinting under the street lamp. "Your decorations are a disturbance and violate HOA rules," she declared, her tone sharp and unyielding. "That's a $400 fine, and we're removing them." Tim's eyes widened, his voice shaking, as he gestured to the skeletons and pumpkins. "This is my yard. It's for Halloween fun. You can't do this," he protested, his words overlapping with the sound of Clara tearing the fine notice from her pad, the paper ripping with a harsh sound. Officer Dupré, known in Bayou Gardens for his strict enforcement of HOA complaints, wasn't swayed. "If you don't comply, I'll have to arrest you for non-compliance," he snapped, his tone cold, as he unhooked his handcuffs from his belt, the metal clanking ominously in the sticky air. Tim stood his ground, his heart pounding, refusing to let the HOA ruin his children's Halloween. "This is absurd. I'm not taking them down," he shouted, his voice echoing through the yard, the ghost letting out another cackle as if in agreement. Officer Dupree stepped forward, his face set in a hard line, and began tearing down the decorations, the plastic skeletons clattering to the ground with a hollow thud, the jack-o'-lanterns smashing against the lawn with a sickening crunch, their orange shards scattering in the glow of the street lamp. Tim's children, 9-year-old Mia and 7-year-old Ethan, ran to the porch, their voices trembling as they cried, "Daddy, our decorations!" Officer Dupree turned to Tim, his handcuffs still in hand, their metallic clank a chilling sound as he issued a warning. "Remove the rest, or you're going to jail," he growled, his voice low, the humidity clinging to his uniform. Clara handed the fine notice to a neighbor who had come out to watch, the paper crinkling as she returned to her sedan, its engine rumbling as she drove off, leaving Tim's yard in disarray, the ghostly laughter silenced, the Halloween spirit shattered. Tim couldn't let this go, not just for himself, but for every child in Bayou Gardens who deserved the magic of Halloween. Word of the incident spread through the neighborhood, shared during school drop-offs, and whispered at the local cafe. The residents, many of whom loved Tim's annual displays, were furious, and a group of children, led by Mia and Ethan, with help from their 35-year-old neighbor, librarian Sophie LeBlanc, organized a protest to support him. The next evening, on October 29th, at 6 p.m., dozens of children gathered in front of Tim's house, their footsteps rustling the grass as they held up handmade signs and shouted, "We want Halloween!" Their voices rising in a chorus of defiance that echoed through the cul-de-sac, a spirited stand against the HOA's control. Parents joined in, their laughter mingling with the children's shouts, some wearing costumes to show solidarity, a symbol of festive resistance in the humid night. The protest caught the attention of the Bayou Gardens Gazette, which ran a story titled, "Halloween Decorations Torn Down by HOA Kids Protest," the reporter's voice amplifying the community's anger through a local radio broadcast. Encouraged by the support, Tim decided to sue the HOA, hiring a lawyer, 41-year-old Daniel Broussard, who specialized in property rights cases. Daniel argued that the HOA's rule was overly restrictive and that the police had overstepped by threatening arrest over a civil dispute, his voice steady and commanding in the courtroom. The trial drew a crowd of Bayou Gardens residents, their footsteps shuffling as they filled the benches, their murmurs a quiet buzz of anticipation. Tim took the stand, his voice thick with emotion as he recounted the night, his words carrying the weight of his children's disappointment. "I decorated to make Halloween magical for my kids," he said, his tone breaking. "They took that away." Daniel presented legal precedents protecting the right to decorate on private property, his arguments sharp and compelling, the rustle of documents loud as he handed them to the judge. But Clara and the HOA board were unyielding. Clara claimed Tim's decorations disturbed the peace and lowered property values. Her voice nasal and sharp, her fingers tapping impatiently on the table. Officer Dupree defended the arrest threat, insisting Tim's refusal to comply justified his actions, his tone gruff and unapologetic. The judge, a 64-year-old known for upholding HOA authority, sided with the HOA, his gavel slamming down with a resounding thud that silenced the room. "The bylaws prioritize community standards," he declared, his voice booming, the echo lingering. Tim was ordered to pay the $400 fine, plus $3,500 in HOA legal fees. The verdict a devastating blow that left him staring at the floor, his shoulders slumped in defeat. The aftermath was grim. The HOA, emboldened by the ruling, banned all Halloween decorations in the neighborhood. Announcing the new rule at the next meeting, Clara's voice echoing through the community center's speakers with a new fine of $600 for violations. Tim, financially strained, couldn't afford to decorate for future holidays. The sound of Mia and Ethan's disappointed sighs, a constant reminder of the cost. Bayou Gardens, once a place of festive joy, became a battleground, with residents fearing the HOA's unchecked power. Tim packed away his remaining decorations, his yard now bare, the humid nights a haunting reminder of the Halloween magic he'd lost, the neighborhood's streets quieter without the cackle of his ghostly display. And so, a Halloween tradition became a battle for justice in Bayou Gardens, Louisiana. Was Tim wrong to decorate his yard for his kids, or did the HOA go too far with their rules? What do you think? Should Halloween fun be banned for the sake of peace? Share your thoughts and join us next time for another tale of HOA madness. Until then, keep fighting for what's right. Thank you for listening.